Ever wondered what's really happening inside the brain of an AI model like GPT or Gemini? The secret is something called multi-head attention, the mechanism that makes transformers so powerful. But here's the surprising part. Multi-head attention isn't as complicated as it sounds. In fact, by the end of this video, you'll have a clear and simple understanding of how exactly it works. Welcome to AI Club Pro, your channel for clear and accessible AI explanations. Today, we are unpacking a key concept from the famous 2017 paper, Attention is All You Need. This paper introduced transformers, the neural network powering advanced language models like GPT, Gemini, Claude, etc. In our earlier videos, we have looked at the big picture of transformers, including their encoder-decoder structure. In this video, we are going to zoom into a crucial piece, the multi-head attention. First, let's simplify the basic idea of attention using a straightforward example. Imagine translating a short sentence, "The cat sits." Let's understand how attention works here. First, each word in the sentence is converted into a numeric vector called an embedding. Think of embeddings as unique fingerprints or IDs. Each embedding is represented by a vector of size 512, which means it's a list of 512 numbers. For example, the word cat may be represented by a list of 512 numbers that you're seeing on the screen. In the original transformer paper, the model typically handles sequences which are of length 512 as well, which is a different 512 from the earlier one we discussed. This 512 is known as the context length of the model. But if a sentence is smaller, like just 3 words, what happens to the other 509 positions? The remaining positions are filled with special padding tokens. These padding tokens have embeddings filled with zeros, clearly signaling to the model that these positions contain no meaningful data. So every sentence or input sequence is represented by exactly 512 embeddings, resulting in a fixed input dimension of 512 times 512, which is the number of words and the number of numbers representing each word. This happens to be a square matrix in this case. Attention mechanisms use 3 matrices called query, key, and value, Q, K, and V. These matrices are learned during the training process and they stay fixed once training is done. If you're unsure about what model parameters mean, please check out our previous video, What is an AI model? For each word embedding of dimension 512, the model generates 3 new vectors, Q, K, and V. Since every input has exactly 512 words, with padding if necessary, the dimension of these matrices for the entire input sequence will always be 512 times 512. The attention mechanism determines how related or similar words are impacting each other by computing the dot product of the query and the key vectors. For 2 vectors, the dot product multiplies corresponding elements and then adds them up. A query vector of dimension 1 times 512, when has a dot product with a key vector of dimension 512 times 1, it results in a single number, a scalar value which represents similarity. When we do this for each word against all 512 words, including the padding ones, we get a similarity matrix of size 512 times 512, indicating how much each word relates to every other word. Sometimes these similarity numbers become very large, causing numerical instability. To prevent this, each similarity score is divided by the square root of the embedding dimension, which is 512 here. This scaling keeps the values stable and easier to handle numerically. Next, these scale similarity scores are passed through a softmax function, turning them into probabilities. A softmax function converts numbers into probabilities, making them positive, and also making sure that the sum of all of these numbers is equal to 1. After applying softmax, each word has probabilities indicating how much attention it should pay to each of the other words in the sentence. For instance, cat might pay 70% attention to animal, 20% to fur, and some other percentage to sitting, with negligible attention to the padding tokens. Finally, the attention probabilities, which are of dimension 512 times 512, are multiplied with the value matrix, which is also of dimension 512 times 512. In matrix multiplication, each row from the probability matrix is multiplied with the value matrix of dimensions 512 over 512. This results in a new vector of dimension 1 times 512. This new vector intuitively captures the combined information about relationships and context from all words based on the calculated importance. The final output of each word is an enhanced embedding, which is still 1 times 512, but is enriched with contextual relationships. This step-by-step mechanism forms the core of how attention works in a transformer model. This helps them to understand relationships between different words and context effectively. So through this example, you can see how transformers capture context and meaning effectively. Previously, we looked at attention as one big calculation, but transformers actually split attention into multiple parallel heads. So why multiple heads? Imagine analyzing a complex movie with friends. Each notices a different thing about the movie, like plot, characters, screenplay, etc. Each perspective enriches your understanding. So something similar happens when you have multiple heads in a transformer. So the transformer, instead of using 512 dimensions, projects them into different heads. Each head independently projects the 512 dimensional query, key, and value vector down into 64 dimensional vectors using 3 learned projection matrices, which are unique to each head. All of these projection matrices have a dimension of 512 over 64. This projection is a matrix multiplication. So for example, the original query vector of 1 times 512 is multiplied with the query projection matrix of 512 times 64, resulting in a smaller query vector of 1 times 64. Similarly, key and value vectors are also projected down to 64 dimensions. Each head then independently performs attention computation, the dot product, the scaling, and the softmax. After performing attention separately on each head, the resulting vectors from all 8 heads are concatenated side by side to form a single matrix of dimension 512. This combined vector integrates the diverse insights from different perspectives, offering a rich multidimensional understanding of the original sentence. This mechanism is at the core of transformers, enabling nuanced understanding of language. After attention processing, each word vector goes through one more simple step called the feed-forward network. This is a quick refining step applying the same straightforward calculation separately to every word. It uses 2 simple transformations and a switch called ReLU activation to enhance the meaning captured by attention. You might wonder, without traditional methods like RNNs or CNNs, how are these transformers able to remember the sequence of words? There's nothing about sequence here. So transformers add something called positional encoding to every word's vector, giving every word a unique positional identifier, somewhat like timestamps. This ensures that the model clearly understands the word order, helping maintain the right context and order. You have now clearly seen inside what happens inside multi-head attention mechanism in a transformer. The paper itself talks about language translation, which means after the meaning behind the sentence the cat sits is captured, it needs to be translated into another language. And there is a decoder step to it. However, the focus and scope of this particular video was on understanding the multi-head attention part of this paper, which is what we have done now. This mechanism is indeed simpler than it first appears. Next, we'll explore how all these amazing AI models are evaluated for their performance. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more beginner-friendly AI content. See you next time.